Hey everyone, welcome back to Rhythm Railroad. This is update number 10 of my HO scale layout. I've done a lot in the last few weeks, so I wanted to make sure I got it on video. And hopefully the video won't be too long once I get through everything. So we're gonna start right away here with the helix. This is work in progress, but it's almost done. At least the essential things are done. It has been tested. I tried it first with just the locomotive to see if it would run. It had no problems at all. And then I tried it with 17 cars. One locomotive pulled all of that without any issues at all. So just a few things about the helix build. I went with a 28-inch radius so that it would fit inside of this curve and I could still get scenery, you know, which is going to be a mountain that goes over. I didn't want to go too wide because then it would be exactly, you know, parallel to that, and then you can't put any scenery in there. I also went with 2%, pretty much a 2% grade. The reason I say pretty much is because I thought I was going to have 16 feet before it came back to the point where it has to hit the 4-inch mark, but it actually has 15. I have 15 feet of run. So it's just a little bit over 2%, which is fine. Like I said, it handled it without any problems. I also decided to go with the method of using screws and washers like this in case I needed to move it, because you never know. And either way, this is solid. I mean, it's not going anywhere. And I didn't want to be fumbling with glue, and if I had to make any adjustments, I wouldn't be able to, and then I have to rip it up. So I'm happy with that choice. By the way, the washers that I use are number 8 washers with number 4 screws, which allow the screw to get real deep into the washer so that it's pretty much flat here, and you don't have any hang-ups with coupler pins or things like that. So that worked out nice as well. I made my risers out of just 1x4. Just, you know, I just cut them into little blocks. And the reason I did that is so that it would be consistent with the height. Otherwise, I'd be like, you know, trying to figure out exactly how to cut it, and some of them would be obviously too short or too long by fractions of a millimeter. But I didn't want to deal with that, so I went with that. And I was also able to achieve my 4-inch difference. I'll just show you real quick. So you can see here where it overlaps the first time. It's right at the 4-inch mark. Now, what I did not take into consideration, well, I thought I did, but then I realized I made a mistake, is that even though I have 4 inches of rise or elevation gain, what I don't have is 4 inches of clearance because the wood itself is 1/2 inch thick, as you can see, pretty much. So I'm really only 3.5 inches of clearance when the cars go into the, I guess, the tunnel through here. Now, the reason why I'm saying that that might be a problem is not because of my regular rolling stock. All my locomotives and rolling stock are not even close to hitting the top of that. In fact, I went with a 4-inch rise because of that, because I knew I had plenty of clearance. But, you know, like most people, when they're building a layout, you start with one idea in your head and it keeps changing as it goes, which I guess is good. But with that comes some problems and some adaptations. So, you know, when I first started this layout, I put my foot down and I said, I'm not gonna run any auto racks or any double stack cars because they're too big and they're too long, and that's that. Well, I changed my mind because after looking at them, I really like them. So what I did is I went out and I bought one auto rack just to test it, basically. And immediately I was disappointed because when I built the staging down here, which you've seen in past videos, I made the tracks at 2-inch center points. So the space in between the tracks is too small. So as soon as I put the auto rack in the, I think in that inside track, and I put this, this is the longest car I have right now. It's a 70-foot or 75-foot lumber car. I put it on the adjacent track, and you know, as soon as they started to turn, they were like rubbing up against each other. So I said, that's it. I'm not doing this, I'm bringing that back. And I did. I returned it. And I was a little disappointed because, you know, but I was like, whatever, I'll just run regular rolling stock like this. It works fine. Even the 70 or 75 foot cars are not a problem. As you can see, they're not really creeping into the other track that much. So with that said, the minute I got home from returning that, I said, well, you know what? It's not that it doesn't work on the layout. That's the tightest spot I have. It's in the two inside tracks are the tightest that'll ever be. So I was kind of like, well, wait a second. What if I run all that long equipment only on the outside track? I'll just designate the outside track for long equipment. And that'll be fine because that radius is much bigger than that. That's 28 and this is 36. So, you know, the turning here won't encroach into the other tracks as much as it did with the other inside tracks. So I said, all right, well, you know what? I'm gonna just bite the bullet and buy that again. So luckily, one of my friends sent me a link to a place that was having a sale, and I was able to get 2 of them, and they were about 30% off. So that's cool. So I got the same car. It's a CP Atlas Masterline series, which is beautiful. I mean, it's really, really nice. I got 2 of those, different numbers, obviously. And I also went ahead and bought a 3-set modern container car set. I think it's a Kato, just to test the height. Because I know that the cars are 53, or they're not as long as the auto racks. So I'm not worried about the length. That'll fit in here, no problem. I'm worried more about the clearance. So what I want to do is test both the auto racks and the container cars inside of here, because I'm a little bit worried that the auto racks are going to be exactly this height with the rail and all that stuff. My friend told me his measure about 3 1/4, which would be awesome if that's the real case. I mean, I did use code 83 rails, not code 100, so hopefully that helps me a tiny bit. But the more space I can gain from the rail, the better. And I don't have any road bed, so you know, it's nice. There's more. That's the most amount of clearance that I can get. If they go 3 1/2, I might be able to squeeze it in with like a fraction of clearance, which might be risky, but you know, whatever. I'm gonna try it when they come. If not, if that fails as well, then what I'm gonna do is treat it like a railroad, like a real railroad, which is some places you just can't handle long equipment or tall equipment. Like, you know, if there's tunnels that are too shallow, or the tunnel entrances are not built for modern equipment, or even like a highway pass that, you know, that is too low because it was originally built for older rolling stock, they just don't run them, or they run single stack container cars instead of double. So what I'll do in that case is my second level is going to be here in this long wall here. That's going to be another yard. It's a smaller yard than my main yard, but that'll be like a transfer yard here. So what I'll probably end up doing is leaving the large equipment here and picking up smaller equipment before the second level goes into the helix and then up into the third level. And I think I've mentioned this in the past, but the third level is basically just a return loop. It's going to be built on very small bench work. It's just basically to run. It's not really, I'm not going to put industries and stuff up there because it's hard to reach. So it's just more run time, which is, you know, I always wanted that. So once it exits here, basically it's going to wrap around the entire perimeter of the basement. And then when it gets back here, it's going to hook back in right there. So there's going to be basically a Y. Here's where it exits from the helix, and it'll enter this way. It's going to go through the wall, obviously. That's why I cut this 2x4 here, so I can make that turn here. So, you know, then once it comes back onto the second level, I can pick up those cars and continue down to the lower levels and the staging. So that's the plan. But you know me, that'll probably change. Who knows? We'll see how it goes with the testing phase. All right, so that's the helix. I'm super happy with it. I will say one thing. The hardest part of building a helix is the startup. So just getting the grade to be consistent is a little tricky because you're dealing with this and you're dealing with this as well. So you have to make sure everything's, you know, anchored in nicely. Luckily, I built my platform super solid and very flat, super level. So that helped me with this situation, you know, because I can only imagine if my starting platform is not level, you know, it's going to cause all kinds of problems later. I also decided to connect the, you know, the sections of curb sub road bed with long flat pieces of the same width, which is 5 inches, by the way. So these are long plates with really strong wood glue and screws as well. And the reason I did that is because, you know, I know some people will just use this, they'll put it in the middle and they'll just, you know, grab it like that. But I feel like that's not enough to keep it flat. Like if anything shifts, this is going to start to buckle a little bit, either up or down. So I figured a nice wide platform would keep it from, you know, from going anywhere. So, but I only did that on the bottom level, obviously, because, you know, then once you get to the top, if I have that, then now you're talking about an inch, which interferes with the clearance. So once I get to the top, then I just use the blocks, but at least you have a nice stable base to lean it on. And then, so yeah, so once I got that first part down, then it's easy. Then you just use the same exact blocks throughout because you're just echoing what you did on the bottom, and that was so much easier. The other thing that I'm happy with is that the helix is not big. It's only 2 turns. So it's gonna go in, that's 1, and 2, you're out. So I don't like helixes that take very long to come out of. I mean, I know they're beautiful and it's, you know, it's a work of art. They're all in that, you know, the ones that I've seen. But I get freaked out when the train is gone for so long. And I know there's people put cameras and port holes so you can see inside and all that stuff, but it just freaks me out a little bit. I'd rather just have the train come in and then while I'm walking around, it won't be too long before it comes out. So I'm happy about that as well. That's pretty much it about, you know, helix stuff. Let's move on to the staging yard. So I think I've shown this before. I basically just wanted to get the peninsula figured out with the spacing, like I told you, at 2 inches apart. I wish I knew about the NMRA new standards before I did this, but I only found out about the new spacing, which is, I think it's 2.5 now, after I had built this. So, you know, whatever, I'm stuck with the 2-inch gaps for now. I mean, I do have a little bit of bench work left, so I might be able to move the inside track in toward the posts. I can't get too close because the cars will start rubbing up against those. And then that'll give me a little more play. I don't think I can get a 1/2 inch from each one, but I might get a 1/4 inch or a little bit under for each one, you know. But it's just really this. Once I get into these curves, they're much softer, so I don't think there'll be any problems there. So this is what I was doing actually last night. I was just trying to finish up all of this. So I ran all of this trackage here. Obviously, you see that's where I stopped. And the reason I stopped there is because I ran out of washers, so I gotta go get more. But I was able to make one full connection, which is that inside track, which I know it's being blocked right now. Let me see if I can get under here. Which continues on, and try to zoom in. As you can see, it just keeps going, and it goes up into the lead for the staging to go back up to the main level. The track on the left that you see there is the inbound. So the trains coming in are going through there, and the outbound is on the right side. So this is basically one giant reverse loop. You know, it's gonna be like a balloon kind of thing. The other side has the turnout, which turns into a single main. So that's where I have to put the reversing module. So let me bring you over to the other side now, because that's where all the other work is. Oh, and by the way, I was able to get a few more pieces of rolling stock. So I'm just trying to test long trains for weight and for to see if they'll make it up to grade and stuff like that. And I got a few more here. I still have some of my N scale stuff laying around. like that. So what I did with my end scale is, I mean, I'm going to be getting rid of most of it, selling most of it, but I wanted to keep some of my favorite scenes for just like a, you know, just like a for like photo op type thing. So I'm going to bring it outside in the sunlight and see if I can set it up and use it for that. So here's what I did. Actually, I'll start from here because I did do work here. I'm working on getting this track set up. So I started putting the cork down. Yes, I know that some people are against this because they know, you know, obviously you can put the track right onto the Homoso without any problems. But the reason I put the cork down is because I just wanted a little bit of a lip for the ballast, so it looks, you know, it looks a little bit more realistic. And I actually ended up doing something unintentionally, which was that the glue that I decided to use for the cork to install it is Tide Bond Ultimate. It's like the strongest one they make. I think it's like a green cap, and it's well, I read the label after I used it for many years, and it's waterproof. So the cool thing, this is what I'm talking about that I did unintentionally, is that you see how it's darker here than it is here? This is where I put the glue. So if you listen to this, and then you listen to this, it creates like a hard shell that is, I guess, you know, that's why you can't get any moisture or anything through there. So what happened was when I was installing the other sections of cork, I noticed that it did that. And I was like, well, wait a second, what if I just, while I'm doing the cork anyway, what if I just smeared on the entire surface of the Homoso, which will make it act like a sealer. It's basically sealing the top part, which is what I'm mostly worried about, because once you start putting ballast and alcohol and paint, you know, all that stuff, all those liquids, that's where I think you have problems with things getting a little warped, because you're introducing moisture into this. I mean, some people say it's not going to affect it, but I don't know. Just I figured out while I'm doing it, I might as well use it. It's just a little more glue, and you know, I think it's going to work. The side panels I might just paint with regular paint because I'm not going to put glue all over the sides here. But at least I have a nice hard shell on top, which is the most, you know, I guess potentially problematic area. I still have to touch it up though. I missed some spots here, so I'll go back with the glue and just kind of smear it there. So anyway, the point of showing you this is that I installed cork, not the track. The track is still floating here, but I installed all this cork roadbed all through here, which came out quite nice. All the way. This is all the staging yard lead down to the lower, into the staging yard. And then over here, because originally I was going to run the track on the Homoso, like flat on the Homoso like this, I wasn't worried about the cork, so I didn't take into consideration the fact that the cork, you know, you need to lift it a little bit. So what I did is I made a transitional area here with very thin styrene. I kept stacking it up bigger and bigger until it met the height of the cork. So that's what you see there. That's all the white stuff, and that gave it a nice smooth incline up to the cork, as you can see there. Then this is where the staging actually starts. This is a number 8 Pico Electrofrog. I had my frog juicer. I'm not going to use a 6 frog juicer for that, but it's just, I had it in hand, so I just plugged it in temporarily. Oh, excuse me. So what I was explaining before, so the track to the left is going to be for outbound, meaning, you know, going back to the main level. And all the trains going into the staging yard are going to take the other track on the right side, the diverging route. That's what I was looking for. Diverging route, that one. So that I did all of that too. But here I glued the track down, so you can see that you know, that shell. I tried to get it all over the Homoso there also. So I basically covered all of that. My locomotive sitting there because I was testing, and I did all of that. You know, obviously I had to go back and touch it up with more glue there, the white spots. And then over here, I didn't want to continue here because I don't have another turnout yet, the right-hand turnout here. But I did have that one, so I hooked it up, and then I continued. This is what I showed you from the other side. So that's all installed. When it comes back around, it's going to be coming from here. And then it's going to run basically parallel to this, and a turnout will be here, and then it'll continue and hook up to there. So what's going to happen basically is after this turnout, for example, there's going to be another turnout that is going to be actually a right-hand turnout, which will kick the track this way. But then the outside part of the turnout will connect to you know, to the furthest track out. And then I'll do the same thing here. So after this turnout, which will be a right hand, I'll put a left hand turnout, and that'll give me the other set of 4 tracks. So it'll be 4 tracks there, 4 tracks here. Those are going that way, and these are going this way. I wish I had more, but I can't fit anymore, especially with the curves. The straight parts are not a problem. It's just getting all the curves set up. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back over here for a second because I wanted to show you something. Even though this glue is awesome, this is the stuff I'm using. See how it says waterproof here? So it's great. The only thing I'm running into, and you know, I didn't realize it because I use this on all my N-scale stuff upstairs. What I'm starting to realize is that there's like almost like a little chemical reaction that happens. Even though you're not even touching the track, but you see how the track is like a little, well, in some places it's a lot tarnished, like it's almost black there. But there's like, you can see the different colors. So it's almost like the fumes or whatever coming up from the glue gets in, you know, creates that tarnish. I was a little freaked out because I was like, whoa, is that going to affect like the conductivity of the track? But I just tested it out. You know, all I did was just clean it with a little alcohol on top, even though the color didn't really change. But it hasn't, you know, it hasn't affected the conductivity of that. So you know, I think it's going to be okay. But I'm not quite sure. If anybody knows why that happens, or if anybody has experienced this, let me know if it's going to be a problem, because I'll switch glues. I might switch anyway, just to be cautious. But that I was not expecting, and I think it was happening with my N-scale stuff, but it's so small that I barely noticed it. This is a lot more noticeable here. But like I said, not a problem at all. I just wish it wasn't, you know, because that's what it's supposed to look like. And it looks really ugly. Now, it doesn't matter because obviously this is all hidden, but either way, all my track I always paint. I spray paint it with the camouflage brown, and then I just take the paint off the top of the rail, and that usually doesn't give me any problems. What I don't want to do is scrape it with a bright boy or anything like that, because that's the problem I had with my N-scale stuff, that at first, when you first scrape it, it works great, but then you need to start cleaning it more and more as you go, and it's annoying. I mean, with this equipment, it's much different because it's a lot heavier, and you know, there's more contact with the rail, and they're very long, so you know, I don't think I have to worry too much about it. But either way, I'm just using like an alcohol with a Q-tip, or even just my finger, but I don't want to go around making scratches and stuff like that. So yeah, either way, all my locomotives, I'm gonna install Keep Alive units. I already bought the ones for my first few locomotives that I bought, so they're gonna get that installed soon. The other thing I did was install this tortoise here. So that I installed the regular traditional way with the pin up. The only thing I did have to do was get a thicker wire, because the original wire that it came with was not strong enough to throw the spring in the Pico turnout. I guess if the string was out, it would work fine, with the regular spring, with the regular tortoise spring, I mean. But I want to have springs in here because I need it to be, I need it to click into place and be reliable, and I can't afford to have anything go wrong down here, especially after I cover it. So yeah, that's basically it. The only other thing I started doing, which is not a tremendous, amount of progress, but still counts, I guess, is I made it to the other side on the second level, which that wasn't there before. So once you come out of here, which is where the siding connects, it goes into single main again, and then that takes you, sorry about the focus, that takes you over on a slight incline. There is like a 1% here to this point, which is where I started the actual cleat, the wood cleat. And then what's going to happen here is the homosode, I have it like this temporarily, but the homosode is going to kick out and go into the middle of the benchwork here. This benchwork on top is going to be 18 inches wide. This is 2 feet. So this way you can kind of have an angle when you're looking at it from the front. Because I didn't want it to be like the same as here, because then you kind of have to like duck down to see the back of the layout. So it's going to be 18, and I'm going to build it the same way that I did that, which by the way has not moved at all. That thing is like rock solid the way I did it. And what that is basically, once I figure out where the homosode is going to land, when the spline comes out, it's going to be somewhere around here, somewhere in the middle. So at that point, when I figure that out, I'm going to cut the wood here and just leave a little, the little piece here. And then I'm going to start adding benchwork next to the spline this way, so that I can tie into that. And then the benchwork will have, cross members just like, like here. But they'll be smaller, which means that they're more rigid. There's less, sag to it. But even just this is super solid. I have screws, just on those brackets, and they're mounted there, and it's really, really solid. So the reason I'm doing that is because I want it to be as low profile as possible. So by using 1x3s rather than 1x4s, I'm raising the profile, and I don't have stuff sticking at the bottom. You know what I mean? And also, in order for me to get the homosode over the benchwork, you're talking about, that much space that I'm taking up. So then that encroaches into the third level. It's just, I want to keep it as low profile and as skinny as possible when I do that. And I'll still have room, within the benchwork in the back here and in front for scenery or tourist machines or whatever I'm doing. Even though all the non-mainline stuff is going to be, like all the spurs and stuff are going to be controlled by servos. So they're tiny, which is what I did with my old layout. So all my industries, I just had a little control out here with a little wheel, and it would, move the servo, and it would allow you to get to that spur. I mean, I want to keep it prototypical, sort of. Like the way the conductor would have to get out of the train, switch it by hand, and then, guide the switch, and then throw it again by hand. So it's not a CTC, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But if I decide to go with a double main here, I might need, to put a tourist machine somewhere, but I'll mount it sideways and it'll be fine. So that's it. At least I have the cleat figured out where it's going to go as far as height, nice and level. And like I said, my second level from this point on, all of this, and some of this is going to be completely level. So that's where all my industries and things like that are going to go. I might have to climb a little bit here just to get a little higher, because once I get into this area, which is where that yard is going to be, then I have to make sure I meet the height here, which is taller than that. This is at 20 inches, and that's at it's going to be at 18 by the time it gets over there. So I do have to get another 2 inches up to that level. So I'll probably gain a little bit there, that 1 inch, and another inch when I get it over here somewhere. I'll get the inch from here, which is plenty. I mean, it's barely going to be a climb. So that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed this. Sorry about my terrible camera technique. And I look forward to number 11, but I'm glad that things are working and I haven't hit any major roadblocks, knock on wood. There's plenty of wood here to knock on. So I'm loving HO scale so far, and I'm looking forward to get into more stuff as we go. All right, thanks for watching.